All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Emma Toops. I am the Executive Chair for American Warriors and the facilitator for the Purple Connection. This event is hosted and sponsored by Toops Consulting, LLC. David and I are connectors, coaches, and consultants in Toops Consulting, and we thank you very much for being here. We welcome, especially to those for this is your first Purple Connection event. For our new attendees, thank the person who invited you. They felt that you would contribute or benefit for attending. And to our regulars, it's good to see you again. Next slide. Here is the event agenda. First, I will do a quick introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection. Then we'll have our educational networking program, which is comprised of 3 panel members, each representing a different category. We'll have a veteran entrepreneur, a military support nonprofit or community organization, and a military-friendly company representative. That will be followed by a Q&A with the panel and the community, which is everyone on the call. That will be followed by transition tips from me. And then I'll start wrapping up the event with how to get involved and some future event announcements. Okay, so an introduction to American Warriors and the Purple Connection. American Warriors is a special interest group of the ACA Business Club, which is a private club with the philosophy that business flows out of relationships. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. Thus, members are committed to creating solid connections by learning and practicing the fundamentals of strategic networking and relationship building. American Warriors then are club members who have an affinity with or support those who have served our country in military or public service. The mission statement of American Warriors is to provide educational and networking opportunities for patriotic citizens who are leaders in business and support the transition into private and public sector business of active duty service members and first responders. The Purple Connection is one vehicle that American Warriors will fulfill its mission. So the challenges of transitioning from the military is a very well-researched problem. It's evident by the multitude of military support nonprofits and community organizations that provide services to address those challenges. Driving Community Impact was a white paper published in April of 2015 by the IVMF of Syracuse University. They had determined in several years of research and thousands of surveys that the leading gap in services was not that there was a lack of them, but there was a lack of connectedness of the services and support. Very often, transitioning military will feel a loss of purpose, feel isolated or misunderstood, or they feel overwhelmed for their need of help, but are disconnected or lack affinity to the people and culture of their new environment. So how do you solve it? You create a partnership of stakeholders who have a common goal for supporting American Warriors. The Purple Connection is a community of partnered stakeholders with a common focus of service, support, and care so that we can effectively address the challenges of transition. So what is up with the name? There's actually 2 reasons for it. In government jargon, the color for joint is purple. When our military is operating overseas on a deployment, that environment is comprised of a multitude of seemingly disparate entities with varying purposes, but they have a common purpose through the operation that unites and focuses their effort. TPC is an attempt to replicate this joint environment to support the American Warrior in transition. Another reason is when you combine the colors of red and blue, you get purple. In TPC, we're facilitating the connection of individuals who identify more closely to either the military community or the military support and business community, and when they come together, it's a Purple Connection. Here are the vision and mission of the Purple Connection. We create awareness to enable access and then empower action through collaboration and encouragement to expedite reintegration, support growth and healing, and enable opportunities. We do this by regularly bringing together community experts and facilitating connections through educational networking. Here is the rules of engagement for our panel program and networking. Each participant will have 8 minutes to deliver their remarks. I will be using a timer. The time can be stopped short and given back for Q&A specific to that panelist or used up entirely by the panelist. However, when the timer goes off, please wrap up and we'll move on to the next presenter. Once each panelist has spoken, there will be 15 minutes for the Q&A with the community. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking or you want to remain anonymous with your question, you can put your question in either the private or public chat channel and I will ask it for you. Questions are not limited to the topic of the day, but take advantage of the expertise available from our panelists this month. Please be succinct in your questions and direct them to a specific panelist or to the community if it is a more general transition question. If you have a complicated question, you may ask it to discover if a subject matter expert is in the room. But if a response would take longer than 2 minutes to address it, I would suggest that you follow up after the event. After the Q&A, I will provide transition tips, which is an educational segment for a paradigm or process shift, or maybe recommendation to resources that apply to the topic of the day, which today is equine therapy. After the presentations, if you have not already, share in the public chat channel your point of contact information and how you serve or need support from the community. The chat will be saved and all attendees will get a cleaned up copy in a future email so you can follow up with each other as you like. I'll do event announcements and then wrap up the event. All right, so first up is our veteran entrepreneur. Patrick Benson is an Army veteran and is the co-founder of War Horses for Veterans. He also is a professional horseman. He will share how his professional horse skills led to founding a nonprofit and tell us more about their programs. Patrick, you're up. Are you there?
Yep. Thank you, Em. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, thank you for having us. And yeah, a little bit of the backstory real quick on myself. Patrick Benson, Executive Director of War Horses for Veterans, and obviously entrepreneur by choice and trade. So a little bit of backstory and how that began. Obviously, I'm from here, Kansas City. Come from entrepreneurs and doctors and things of that nature. But after I left, I was in the invasion of Iraq in 2003, charged with squad size element. And then soon after that, I was transitioned out, and actually I wrote a letter to a gentleman that helped me kind of get my business started after a firefight. And so with that nature of just kind of putting your head down and grinding it out, I had a vision of what I wanted to do. And I did go in the horse industry. I didn't know everything. I just knew if I jumped in the deep end, I got to figure out how to swim. I wasn't going to sink. And so from that, I guess I'd say lessons learned looking back is transitioning. At that time, there wasn't a lot out there. Obviously, at that time, I was very fortunate with some of the individuals and businessmen and women that I have associated with prior growing up. One thing I was always taught: don't be afraid to ask for help, and you can't know everything. And so, moving on forward from there, I went into the horse industry. It's not the easiest industry in the world. It's could be very challenging, and so. Became certified by a gentleman named John Lyons. And after that, I went on the road and I taught clinics all over the country, everyone from all different levels of training from horsemanship. And then I got into the competition side of things and became fairly competitive on the English world and the Western side of things. So there's different elements in the horse industry. So within that, though, you always got to keep your ears and your eyes open for opportunities. If you're not innovative, if you're not constantly trying to grow or educate or challenge yourself in the business world, you're dying in the scheme of things. And so complacency is not a good thing. And so always getting out of your comfort zone, always pushing yourself to the next level is very important. Doesn't matter what age you're at. And so that was always drilled on me. And obviously, as a continuous learner and educator, I read a lot of books. I have phenomenal mentors I surround myself with, and I'll kind of elaborate on that and why the importance of that is, especially in transition. In any type of business, you have many mentors on your journey in life. And so from that, while I was running PB Equestrian, performance horses and selling and trading and doing high level horses around the country on the East Coast and the West Coast, I had the privilege of having amazing owners that had done very, very well, have worked very, very hard, and gave me the idea in a way of saying, man, it'd be amazing if military veterans, it doesn't matter what your rank is or anything, where you serve, had the opportunity I have right now to spend time with these individuals. Because like Emma kind of addressed a little bit earlier, is when you get out of that loss of purpose, direction, the chaos of, you would say, the civilian world, and you have to start creating that structure. Well, surrounding, like the common thing, surround yourself with people that you strive to be or hope to be like, or hope to have the influence from, is who I made sure I try to surround myself with. I studied the best in the horse industry. And that's what I always made sure, that's what I saw. So I knew I was pushing myself in that direction. And the same thing came in from life lessons and businesses. So many of my friends, commission, non-commission, stayed in for many years. Some got out with issues. And then at the end, some of them got after 20 some odd years and retired, and still realized that they don't have it figured out with the connections. And like you said, your network is everything. And so putting that together, where War Horses kind of came into about, was providing that opportunity. And what I was doing for a living as a horseman was having a significant impact on me as a combatant. Not understanding I am diagnosed with TBIs and stuff like that from pretty large explosions I was exposed to and hits from IEDs. And so understanding what was going on in my body, and I'll dive in, that's a rabbit hole for me to dive into later on, but from health and nutrition. But the biggest part of it is the power of the horse. The horses taught me compassion, humility, guided me, it challenged me, it humbled me bigger than anything. I made sure I rode and challenged myself in any way I could. I rode everything and trained with some of the best trainers in the world, Olympic riders and things of that nature. And I got really out of my comfort zone. And that's, I think, laid the foundation to where I'm at now and where I'm going to continue to go. And so I've always said, part of the therapy aspect, if you're going to use word in those areas, for me was sometimes hitting the ground and having to go, how do I pick myself back up, and how do I face that challenge, and how do I move forward? Who do I need to connect with? Who do I need to talk to help me get through this element and this challenge? And that goes with life and personal life and business life. So I am the owner of PJB Management, P&A Performance Horses, obviously co-founder and executive director of War Horses for Veterans, and then I started PB Equestrian. And so those things kind of inspired me to, and it's, I think military and veterans, they make phenomenal entrepreneurs. But most importantly is making sure that we mentor those individuals coming out of it, or if you've been out of the service for a period of time, you choose to go on the entrepreneurial side of things, on the business world things, that we make sure that we assist on connecting and networking, and then be honest about, I'm not saying it's not rewarding, it's awesome, but we're the only nutty ones willing to work, 90 hours a week, and so we want that freedom, which sometimes pays off in the long run, but there's a lot of work in the upfront of things, but it's really rewarding, and being able to provide opportunities. A little history lesson, there was an amazing thing that happened in World War II, a lot too, when the guys came back, and men and women coming back from war. A lot of businesses were started, but guess what they did? They hired their buddies, their battle buddies. They took care of each other. They provided opportunity, and they learned about placing the right people in the right jobs. And there's some trial and errors, and there's some hard lessons learned there. But at the end of the day, we know the commitment and dedication and the mindset of those individuals and what they're capable of doing. And so I think part of our job as well is to educate other businesses and other people the quality of what you can get from hiring the military. But at the same time, they need translation and they need a way to transition into those cultures. So teaching culture, leadership, communication, we do some of that as well. And it's an amazing opportunity. So I'll try not to go any further into anything else, Emma. So.
Okay, That was very well done. You're inside of a minute of your 8-minute time mark. Does anybody have a very quick question for Patrick?
Oh, I did that good, man.
We'll have the opportunity.
I was
to
just
ask you
on
in the
mute.
Q&A.
That's the problem. So the War Horses for Veterans, is it national? Is it local to particular areas? I mean, if it's not local, how would a veteran, suffering from any traumatic, episode, get in touch with War Horses, and how would they access your service?
That's a great question. We are home base here in Kansas City. This is the incubator. That's what I call the facility in the building. This is where it originated from. We do reach out nationally. We bring in from all around the country. For instance, like our SOF program, Special Operation Forces, we work with active military and then transition and then individuals that have gotten out. We do have clinical professionals that are still in that do work within the tier 1, tier 2 groups, but we fly them in from all over. So a veteran, if we can't service them, I always try to make sure that we have a resource where we can network them to a program that's going to be maybe a fit or a better fit. Just for instance, we just this past weekend had a special reunion for 75th Ranger LERPs that were 68, 69, and 70. They're basically laid the foundation for us on long range reconnaissance, small unit tactics, and counter ambush and ambush tactics and guerrilla warfare. And I studied them when I was in school, and I used some of their tactics actually. And so we work with those generations, and it's an honor to serve them before. So we fly them in from all over the country. We have a group coming in next week for 6 days called the War Horses Elite Program. And that's 6 individuals coming in for a deep dive. It's a very intensive program, and you will learn everything you know about yourself. But to answer your question as a whole, they reach out, we evaluate. If there is someone at a critical incident, we try to figure out in their immediate area and try to get them the help as fast as possible. If it's something they can stay connected with us, and then we put them into one of the programs, we let them know it's available. That's how we'll do it. And we pay for it, and we fly them in, and we put them up. We have a bunkhouse now on site, and we accommodate all that.
All right, very good. All right, great question. We will have more opportunities to ask Patrick specific questions about their programs in the Q&A period. All right, we are going to move on to our second presenter. Okay, our second presenter is representing a community organization, which is also a military support nonprofit. Lisa Bodenhausen's professional occupation is in travel and concierge services, but today we'll learn about her role as a certified equine specialist and the program's events and services of Horses and Heroes. Lisa?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It truly is an honor to be here today. And I want to thank you, Emma, for bringing this all together, because I believe together we're all going to be able to make a much bigger impact. And Patrick, I've not heard you speak before, but well done, well done. So glad to hear what you're doing. But Horses and Heroes, a little bit of the backstory. We provide equine therapy for veterans, first responders, and their families at no cost. We have added some additional services, which I'll talk about at the end. But the way that the program, or the way that Horses and Heroes started, it started in 2014. Our founder, Julie Baker, pulled together her heart of rescuing horses, which she did at age 12, and being a military mom, a military wife, she had seen firsthand within the community the terrible devastation that a lot of the trauma left with a lot of the veterans that she saw. And she thought, how could we put the two of these together? And she found out that there was the perfect platform for Horses and Heroes to get started. Through all of that, I will say that working alongside Julie, I've seen perseverance. I've seen her do amazing things with the tenacity and commitment. She's not only grown through the weathered storms of building a 501c3, but also has maintained that covenant position of being the platinum designation, which just is based on your standards, your procedures, and your transparency. But basically, I think one of the biggest things that people don't really understand is they don't really know what equine therapy is all about. In all honesty, I didn't. So now I was always a horse lover. My first horse's name was Skyrocket. He was a sort of a white Shetland pony, and there was nothing fast about him unless we were being scraped along the fence for him to get me off. But I was asked to consider being a part of the board in spring of 2017. So I slated about an hour and a half to go meet with Julie at the farm, which is currently located in Shawnee. And I thought I'd be there that amount of time. And 3 hours later, I actually left and was on my way home. And I was blown away that, as being a horse owner for a long time and around horses, I was amazed at what I didn't know and how impactful equine could actually be in the area of trauma. So before, though, I decided to really put forth and be a board member, I called my sister, who is the psychologist and the director for homeless veterans in San Diego. And I said, what do you know about equine therapy? And she said, in my opinion, Lise, she said, is the most impactful non-talk therapy that I know of. As a matter of fact, we use it weekly with our inpatient in-facility patients. And then, as we found out and talked later, they actually use the same model at that facility that we do. So with that, the EGALA model that we use puts together a team that works with the clients. It will be a mental health clinician licensed in the state, who has also been through extensive training to actually use the EGALA model, which is completely ground-based. There's also an equine specialist that is in the arena or in the session with the veteran, and they also have to go through extensive training. And together as a team with the client, and the most important, probably additional, would be our heroes on four legs, which is the horses. And then people ask why is that so effective? I think a lot of it is, for a lot of people, it's, again, like my sister said, non-talk. And so it's an experience. It's allowing a completely different feel. It's not sitting in the traditional therapy. And the EGALA model is so well known. It's global, and there's over 700 locations around the world. So there's lots of additional training coming all the time that we can embrace with the clients. But I think one of the biggest things is horses are prey animals. And this was something I'd never really thought of. So when we see horses head down grazing, and we think they're not paying attention to anything, they are actually highly intuitive, and they're hyper aware of what's going on around them. So they become very helpful in that situation, because they're going to react or change what they do or not do within any given situation. They're also a part of a herd, which within our people world, it's a social structure, so that could mean a place where you work, within the family, within your unit, whatever the case may be, the department. So there's so much that can be related, and it's all works together. Again, like I said, besides the state licenses and things, there's lots of additional certifications. The horses on our team, we have 8 full-size horses and 5 minis. Do not call them ponies. That offends them a great deal. They are miniature horses. We use those as our ambassadors, our little minis, and we will take them out into the community because we want to educate people. We want them to know the difference and know that we're there for them. So we have Henry, especially, who has a costume for every event, and he's bedside trained, wheelchair trained. He has Build-A-Bear boots when we take him into a facility, and he wears a little catch-all so we don't leave anything behind. So we'd love to invite you to come out to get to know and see what we do. Probably the biggest thing that I could ask for right now is we need obviously volunteers, cash donations or financial support would be awesome. We are in the process of relocating and looking for a new location because we're landlocked and we need to grow. So if you know of any place, keep your ears open. We would love that. And then also we're looking for those like-minded people with vision, because we have a 5-year plan to take Horses and Heroes to where it is today and be able to offer the premier equine therapy center that offers other types of modalities and support. So it's not only a center, but it's also a retreat. So that was a lot, but we do offer other types of things, which I'm going to let Rachel expand on. How'd I do?
Oh, very well. You're inside of 20 seconds. You did that awesome. Very good. All right. We'll have no time for specific questions now, but we will move on to Rachel. There'll be ample time a little bit later for some Q&As with Lisa. All right. Our next presenter is representing a military-friendly company. So Rachel Willoughby-Greene is a licensed trauma and stress clinician. Her specialized certifications include equine assisted psychotherapy and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, also known as EMDR. She has supported Horses and Heroes as a clinician since 2015. So let's hear a little bit about Rachel's private practice.
Thank you, Emma.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody being here. Yes, so my name's Rachel, as Emma just said. I'll give you a little bit of background and then some information about my private practice. But I grew up in a family with a lot of just first responders, law enforcement, and on the fire side, and military. And so I just, grew up in a family that the populations were important. And so they became important to me. It was just kind of normal to be around them. I think a lot of stuff was planted on my heart when I was a kid. And I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, who was a POW, World War II veteran. Flew the P-51 Mustang, and he was very involved in his POW group. And I spent a lot of time down at the VA with him. And we had a lot of conversations that I realized later on were very unique for him to even talk to me about the war, talk to me about trauma and triggers. And I didn't realize it until later, but I just happened to be the one in the family that would ask him questions when there was something that was bothering him or something that he didn't like. Hence, it's not surprising that I would become a therapist, because I just was curious about things and asked questions about what was going on for him. So I think it laid a groundwork for me of how relevant trauma and stress is and how long it can stick around, because we're talking several decades later that he was experiencing triggers. So, and then horses were always a part of my life. I have always loved them, grew up with them. My dad was a horse trader. And so all the good horses got sold. And so I learned a lot about horses by having so many different kinds of horses, just kind of cycle through and learning about how different they could be. So I oftentimes had the quote unquote bad ones because my dad would sell the good ones, but I learned a lot. And then in grad school, when I was getting my master's in counseling psychology, I would go back and forth to Oklahoma, and I was riding for some horse trainers down there, and then I would come back and go to school. And there was a day, and this is when it all kind of just was solidified for me. There was a day that I was working for one horse trainer in the morning, and in the afternoon, I went to a different horse trainer, and I was getting basically hollered at for the exact same things and the same mistakes. So completely different trainers, different styles of training. It was a completely different, it was barrel horse training in the morning, and that was reining horse training in the afternoon. So, pretty different. but I had this aha in the afternoon. I'm just, sitting on this horse in the middle of the arena, and the things that the trainer is, getting on me about were the exact same things that I was having trouble with in my life. And it was like not being consistent, not believing in myself, not following through, all of this stuff. And it just hit me, and I'm like, all right, this absolutely translates to life. And so I just started reaching out to people who combined counseling with horses. And so that kind of just started the process for me. When I met Julie, like Lisa said, I've been working with them since 2015. And so that's where my equine assisted psychotherapy work started. And so it's kind of crazy. I won't get into that story, but it's kind of an interesting story how Julie and I even met. And so that's been fantastic for me. And it's a huge reason why I get to work with military and first responders in my private practice as well, largely because of the work I've been able to do with Horses and Heroes and the connections that I've made. So in my private practice, so I do contract with Horses and Heroes, and then I do some other contracting work. Just recently, over the past year, started doing some work with the Battle Within as well. And my entire practice, I do see pretty much the only civilians I see are spouses. So sometimes I see a first responder or military spouse. I'm married to a firefighter who's been in Kansas on KCFD, Kansas City Fire Department, going on 18 years. And have been down some pretty dark roads with him. And so I end up, spouses will come to me because they know kind of what I've been through with my husband. And so I end up kind of working with them and helping them through their stuff as well. So yeah, I love the work that I do. I have my own horses as well that I integrate them into my counseling sessions as well. Just the regular EAP, the equine assisted psychotherapy, that I can explain a little bit more if people have questions. And then the EMDR as well. And I utilize the horses in that too. There's a protocol called Equilateral, which is an equine assisted EMDR protocol. And so I get to integrate the horses, both in my private practice, and Julie and I are both trained in that. And so through Horses and Heroes, we've been able to start offering that as services as well. So yeah. I'll give it time because I'm sure there's questions about stuff in horses, so I'll leave time.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes and 40 seconds for specific questions to Rachel. Jim, go ahead.
Rachel, I'm familiar with EMDR. I think it's marvelous as a therapy, especially for the PTSD situations. Yeah. Today's the first time I've heard about integrating equine therapy into it. Can you share just a little bit more on that? I think that sounds marvelous.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I would love to do more of it, and it can be done in a group format too, through like the resourcing phase in EMDR. So the reason I knew this was so profoundly helpful too is because I do, in my office, obviously I'm doing trauma work and I'm utilizing EMDR, but then when I'm working with my trauma clients with the horses, they're so much more grounded and feel so much safer. And so I've had clients who have come to me and said, you know what, I had a really bad experience in the office with EMDR, but I love doing the horse work. Can we try it with the horses? Because I feel safer to approach my trauma when I'm here. And so the EMDR protocol, it's completely faithful to all the phases of EMDR. So we're not changing any of that, which is fantastic. So there's more support for it, and insurance and all that can't argue with it, right? Because we are doing EMDR. But the horses are there to support it. So like, for example, one really big way the horses will show up in phase 2 of EMDR is kind of our preparation, resourcing, stabilization. And so there's a lot of things that we want to create for somebody, like skills and stuff that they feel like they need to be able to approach and work on their trauma. And so like, for example, if somebody needs to feel connected, or they need to feel a little bit more confident, or feel like they can master something, you can create some sort of activity with the horses where they can actually experience that. And then we can use that as a resource. So it's like the whole experiential part, right? Like, cause we can talk about, well, I need to work on this skill. But sometimes it just stays up here and stays in our head. But when we can actually experience it, and I can like feel connection with a horse, or I can feel calm and actually be able to tolerate it, then I know, in my gut, in my heart, in my brain, like physically, I know what that felt like. And so it just gives a really strong resource to be able to connect to then be able to process. But the horses are present throughout all the entire EMDR work. I hope that was helpful.
Very good. We are down to the last 4 seconds of the panel program. So there goes the timer. We will move on then to the Q&A period. Now, the Q&A period is open to any type of transition questions that you may have. And we may have the expert in the room, or we will know somebody. But if you have something specific that is going to take a little longer than, a couple minutes to respond to, then you can ask it, and then we'll just see about having you follow up with the appropriate expert if they are on the call, or we will refer you if we know someone. So let's take advantage of the expertise of our panelists as well as other members of the community. Anybody have a specific question?
Did everyone see that the PACT Act passed today?
Yes. I was talking with somebody about that in an event earlier. Very good. BJ, did you have a question? You're muted.
No, I wanted to have a detail on what Bruce just said.
It was some legislation that has to do with environmental exposure while on deployment for the modern service person, similar to the Vietnam era veterans' exposures to Agent Orange and things of that nature that were environmental. So this is a similar legislation, but for kind of the modern era.
I see. I did want to ask all three of these panelists, which is Patrick and Rachel and Lisa. They are in their own little big processing plant. I was wondering if you after you got everything all done with what you're doing and a format down, if you reach out to other agencies that do similar things. Like there is through the Olathe Chamber of Commerce, there's a group called the New Horizons Ranch, which deals with not veterans, but they deal with special needs children. The same with equestrian activities. I was wondering if you had any contact with them, or if there's other ways that you can reach out to other people who are doing similar things with their own clientele.
For us, I can answer yes. We know that it's a small community, but there's a big need. And when we can complement one another and work together and alongside with one another, it's absolutely something that we like to do. So we're very supportive and very open to doing that. It just helps get more people helped, right?
Okay, very good. Good question. Sharon, you have a question. You're muted.
There we go.
There you go.
Just for your information, BJ, I did want to tell you and everybody that Patrick is a member of the Olathe Chamber. He was given that as a non-for-profit organization this year. So we recognized him with a special award to be a part of the Olathe Chamber of Commerce. Lisa, you mentioned that you were looking for some property in relocation.
Yes.
I may have something for you, and I would like to talk to you later about that.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. We are networking and learning. Awesome. All right. So here's a question for our panelists. And this is because I know each of you and I know a little bit about this. But when I met Julie, and this was probably in 2014 or so, I did not realize the whole use of the horse's sensitivities to energy and being very hyper aware of its environment was how they are used as a assist to the therapy. Could you individually speak to that, because you've referred to certain therapy methods that, unless you sort of kind of have a background in what that is about, may have been gone right over our heads. So with Patrick's programs, I know that they actually ride the horses, and there is horse work involved in how they are used in assessing or treating whatever their issue is, versus Horses and Heroes, where it's all, you refer to it as groundwork. So if you could speak a little bit to how does the, hypersensitivity nature of the horse get implemented in your various programs?
I'm going to defer this to Rachel because she can pull in not only the horse aspect, but also from a clinician standpoint as well.
Thanks, Lisa. So obviously energetically, and like it's already been talked about horses being prey animals, right? And so they're very aware and in tune of their environment. So then therefore they're very aware and in tune with what is happening with us that are around them and interacting with them as well. And so we get really good real-time feedback and reflection from the horses. So I always tell my clients, I'm like, this is probably the healthiest relationship you're going to encounter, because you're getting no BS. Like the horse is super congruent. Like they're just going to respond to what they experience. And so that feedback is priceless, right? We also sometimes don't always give them the answer about horses and allow them to kind of come up with their own interpretations early on, because it gives them a chance. How they're perceiving the horse responding to them might say something about their story, right? So a horse, just for example, a particular horse behavior, someone might perceive it as rejection or aggression or whatever, right? And so sometimes that's helpful and gives us some information about what they might be dealing with. So that feedback is priceless. And the experiential part, right? Like you're getting to actually experience it in real time, and you can learn something from it and take it away and apply it outside the arena. Correct. We do ground-based work. Not to say that eventually we don't want to integrate any kind of mounted work or riding. But honestly, for the work that we do and for the severity often of the trauma that we're dealing with, things tend to just be safer, like safety component for the horse and for the person. Sometimes when we if the person isn't ready and we put them on, the back of a horse, like it just kind of ups the ante on the anxiety and stress. There's obviously, like, I love my horses and I love to ride. So there's a lot of benefit to eventually getting to that point and that kind of level of communication and connection with a horse. But so much can happen on the ground. And what's really cool is so many people, and I had to learn this myself, like I love to ride, right? So when I came into it, I was like, I just want to ride. I just want to ride. Like, I don't need to spend all this time on the ground with my horse. And then when I really started spending time and learning about horses, I realized what a huge percentage happens on the ground and how much of my relationship happens on the ground and needs to happen on the ground. And so that's a huge part of what we do. And so people are surprised by it, right? They're like, well, I need to ride the horse. And so I think when they realize there's so much happening and there's so much dynamic, and because we do a lot of herd work, that they can observe with the horses and then observe on the ground and their interactions with them. To be honest, it hasn't entirely been necessary. There's times that we're like, all right, this person could probably continue on and mounted work might be helpful. But it hasn't entirely been necessary for our like clinical outcomes. Because the goal is like the clinical outcomes for the individual, not necessarily like horsemanship skills. So it's just kind of a different need and outcome.
Right. Very good. Patrick, could you speak to your programs? Because I know that the horse work is kind of an integral part of it.
Yeah. And like Rachel was saying too, like groundwork is vital. And I always said a lot of the therapies in really good horsemanship. What it comes down to is, I'll use, for example, like the group next week, we have outcomes, goals, clinical psychologists that will be in town and all that stuff. But like people want to ride. But the thing is every single one of these individuals on the longer term program, they get to ride, but they're going to learn from the ground up. And the first time they ride is bareback and a halter. And that means they have to let go. And like she was saying earlier, when you walk into the round pen, that horse already has your number, knows everything about you. And then you have to adjust yourself to what the horse's needs are. And you have to listen and communicate. And you have to quiet everything in the mind. And so one part of that is you want to be let's just say from a horsemanship side of things, but this ties into communication, this ties into leadership. You need to know how to breathe. If you can't breathe, I promise you, you won't ride very well. So when you get into breath work and we dive into that, we train and teach people to, control and direct the horse with just their breath. Well, that means it's their energy. It's what's been coming off. It's what you're projecting. People have had conference calls or you've had meetings where someone walks in a room, not one word's been said, but you know everything because of the energy that person's bringing in the room, the posturing, everything. They haven't even said a word. Just think of a horse magnified. They sense that even before you even come near them. And so that being said, when you go into the riding side of things I think for the clientele that we deal with, and they deal with a lot of trauma, like our backgrounds, but like with the group coming next week, have seen an ungodly amount of combat. They have done missions that none of us will ever know about. And so we use it in a different way, and I challenge them a different way. I hurry them up to slow them down. Less is more, right? So I have this demographic that I cater to when we work with for this group. I need to put them on the horses at different levels. I have different tier horses, different things, because when you learn how to challenge yourself on the horse side of the business, is the higher level of horse you ride, the more present you have to be. That means every nook and cranny of your body that horse is feeling and reacting to it. So you want to communicate and respond with the horse. And so you have to let go of everything. And so I deal with a lot of alpha, or you deal with individuals that have, say for instance, this group next week, I already know who I'm dealing with. And so to work to where we need to be working with the psychologist and we talk and we discuss things, they get uncomfortable. And like Rachel said, their anxiety will spike like crazy, but you give them the tools to gain the confidence with that. But what happens with you get on bareback, I always tell them, I said, you have two choices. You breathe and be present with the horse, or you hold your breath and be tight. I promise you'll hit the ground. And when they do that, they're like, you have two options. I mean, you're setting them up, you're not going to let them get hurt. But the biggest part of it is having to let go and be in that vulnerability state. When you become vulnerable and you open up, it's like a massive freaking weight that gets lifted off you. And then that opens up the door. So one of the operators said it best, it's a gateway. Horses are one of the most underutilized tools out there, and I can use them in so many different forms, no different than what Rachel and Lisa are talking about. There's certain individuals that are going to be, that we cater to, that we're going to be great dynamics for, and then there's some that we're not a fit for. But I design war horses to where, how do I get someone like myself or my knuckle dragging, door kicking special operation buddies to come do it, because some of those individuals need it the worst. And they hide. I'm good. But unfortunately, that cup they have, that's pretty large, and that sucker fills and overflows. It causes a massive mess. And the horses have been such an effective tool. And then next thing you know, I'm teaching mindfulness, but you're riding a horse, but they're not touched their hands down. They're riding with their breath. Well, you're meditating, buddy. You're in a high state of coherence. You're just not hovering off the ground with your hands like this. And then when they come back, they're like, hey, that's awesome. So now you have senses, you feel, see, you have all those things. So if you do go to, like I say, a mindfulness session, or you're going to go into breath work and things like that, you have all these positive things. You have smell, touch, see, you have everything to actually think of something positive that enhances you to get into that coherent state that some people help with, getting people to shift and replace, or the case may be, if you're in a heightened state of alertness, you can get out of it. You can practice and train yourself to get out of it pretty quick. Real quick, I had a guy that he was getting ready to do a halo jump. He started having a panic attack, and he started thinking soft hands, soft hands, soft hands. And that's what you train when you ride. And when you ride, you go calm, and that softness. Well, that horse rewards you. It's non-biased. If you do it right, that horse rewards you, and it's an amazing, amazing, amazing feeling. And that's why it's so effective, and so effective at all different levels. But guess what? No matter what you do with horse training, like you teach the trade, I always say we're teaching you the trade, but with that, you have to start on the ground. And it's really, really important.
Great. That's lovely as far as the explanation for the continuum of what the horse will do in therapy. I had a question that was specific to Lisa. Do your programs service also active duty as they are still serving, or are they folks who have already separated?
No, obviously active, yes. First responders as well is a part of our mission, and their families. One of the reasons why we get so many active people seeking us out, sometimes it's the wives that seek us out for them to come. But honestly, with the law enforcement, firefighting, the active, if they seek help within the department or what have you, it's documented in their files. And so a lot of times people are fearful to go in because that could, in their mind, at least, it could potentially affect a future promotion or this or that. So they keep it very closed in.
Yeah.
We're actually a vendor, approved vendor with the VA, and we work alongside the police departments. They know that they're coming, and they know, I mean, they may not know who they are that are coming, but we're not required to report anything that we do. Although we are protected, you know, we are very HIPAA compliant, but we do not have to report, and they feel comfortable to come and explore options and explore ways to find steps for this trauma recovery.
Okay, very good. We're about to run out of time, but I did get a whisper for a question. So I'm going to give Marvin, you've got 2 minutes, Marvin. What's your question? Marvin, do you still have your question? Oh.
I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I hit the wrong key. Anyway, long story short, a long time ago, I went to a workshop with the HHS, and in there was a discussion about GSA surplus exchange. So Navy vet that I am, and I'm loving hearing about the horses and the therapy. I would like to just suggest that you guys check out maybe the GSA surplus exchange, because you can get, according to what I'm looking on my phone, is you can get a real estate property and also whatever other goods or services that organizations or businesses forfeited on or went back to the federal government that are there ready and available to help stretch that budget, because what you're doing is God sent, and I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Very good. Just a suggestion for a resource.
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
Marvin.
GSA surplus. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are done with our Q&A period, so we'll move on in our program. Thank you to our presenters.
Yes.
Okay. So this next part of our program is our transition tips. Toops Consulting LLC is focused on supporting students and adults in life, school, career, or business transitions. However, in this segment of the program, I'm not going to talk about our business, but provide tips pertaining to the topic of the day, which is equine therapy. So what is complementary and alternative medicine? This is what is showing on this slide, common CAM practices. So the definition of an alternative therapy is one that has not been shown by scientific study to be safe and effective, but is used in place of conventional or allopathic medicine. A complementary therapy is one that has not been accepted as conventional medicine, but is used together with conventional medicine. So in this, you may not be able to see all of this. As shown in this figure, some common CAM practices include manipulative and body-based therapies to include massage and chiropractics, mind-body interventions such as yoga and meditation, alternative medical systems such as naturopathy, energy therapies like using magnets and Reiki, and then biology-based approaches with diet, herbs, and vitamins. So with that definition, with these definitions and this figure, is equine therapy a CAM? So we've learned a little bit about what it is technically, but it kind of is. It's both and sort of, and depending, based on context on who is receiving and how the therapy is delivered. So if you've been actively involved in the military support community, and have seen the varying transition challenges that men and women face, the correct answer, quote unquote, for how to address these challenges is often, it depends. So the paradigm shift I want you to make is to understand that the general categories of physical and emotional wellness have a multitude of conventional as well as alternative and complementary therapies available based on individual needs, preferences, and resources available. And equine therapy is one that may be very beneficial, but very few people may know anything about it. Okay, so what does therapy mean in the military community? Too often, it is traditional talk therapy. You go into a facility, you talk to someone for an hour, maybe you get prescribed some medicine, given guidance for what to think or do as far as behaviors between that appointment and the next time you show up. There may or may not be any accountability or discipline to that guidance. So therapy may or may not be very effective if the service person doesn't have the discipline or accountability to change their thoughts or behaviors. So what does therapy mean in a non-military community? It can mean a lot of different things based on some of what I've already shared, the complementary and alternative methods that are available along with conventional medicine methods. How health and wellness is addressed in the non-military community is through one's choices, their preferences, and their access to the various needs. In the military, access is through what is provided through the system. And these are what most people are aware of for what might be resources to address their health and wellness concerns. So for whatever physical or behavioral wellness concerns a person may have, consider that there are options available outside of what the military will generally make people aware of or have access to. What therapy you've used in the past? Has it worked or has it not worked? Have you gotten a second, third, or even fourth opinion for alternative or complementary therapies that might be tried if other things have not? Networking is hard. Ask for clarification for what, why, and how various therapies are delivered or received. Talk to others who have similar experiences to your challenges. Find out what might have worked for other people who have similar experiences as you. Be willing to be transparent with people that you trust in order to gain awareness and access to alternatives. If traditional methods have not worked or not worked well enough, or they have broken systems as far as their delivery or the administration of service. If you need to learn about alternative therapies, access community experts. The Purple Connection is a community of organizations and business professionals who want to and can help expedite gaining knowledge and access to resources and opportunities. Be cognizant of what gaps you may have in your knowledge or behaviors and seek out appropriate experts to help you. All right. We'll move on to me wrapping up the rest of the program. If you're interested in continuing to participate more intentionally in facilitated conversations on various transition topics, I invite you to consider becoming an American Warrior of the ACA Business Club. Becoming an American Warrior is becoming a member of the club, and it affords you with many benefits. You have access to any of the business club facilities that we have at any location that we have them. Here in the Kansas City Metro, we have 5 clubs. You have access to 20 interest groups. American Warriors is only one. You have option to join a business development team and access to all the club's organized and sponsored events, as well as directory for all members wherever they happen to be a member. We have live and virtual networking and learning opportunities every single week. And then, of course, leadership opportunities for teams, groups, or club locations based on your willingness to step up to a leadership role. The Purple Connection and Strengths Profile workshops are sponsored, organized, and facilitated by Toops Consulting. American Warriors are always encouraged to attend and invite guests to participate as often as they can in these. And other engagement opportunities for American Warriors and their guests are the monthly discussion roundtable, a semi-annual social and guest speaker program, and then also the leadership opportunities as far as the club or executive committees. For future American Warriors events, next week is the American Social and Guest Speaker Program. We do this twice a year in lieu of the monthly discussion group. So this is going to be an in-person event at the American Legion, Post 370 in Overland Park, Kansas. I'll cover some additional information on that in the next slide. The Intro to Strengths Profile Workshop is on demand. It can be done in person or Zoom. Contact me if you or a group you represent is interested in learning a little bit more about it and taking the assessment. And then, of course, the Pro Connection, which is this event, which is a month from now. So Thursday, next week, August 25th, is the American Warriors Social and Guest Speaker Program. It's an in-person networking social for the first part, and then a program of 5 veterans who will share their transition story. They each will have 10 minutes to kind of share what they expected in transition, how it actually played out, and what is their new purpose in life and career after service. The Eventbrite link to the event will be provided in the chat channel information that you will receive. So if you have not already registered for that, you can do that, or you can just show up if you are local and want to attend, because we will have registration at the door. Those of us who are in the Purple Connection should be already getting emails about it. TPC referrals is in a few weeks. This is an opportunity to intentionally connect with me and up to 3 other members of the community on the morning of September 7th. Introductions are made in the first round, and then information as far as the connection or support they need, and then an ask for something specific. Then in the second round, those on the call respond to the ask for referrals and guidance in the first round. Invitees are actively engaged in the military support community. They're growing their business. They are an American warrior or in transition, and everybody has a servant type of leader mindset. Even invitations for that will go out approximately 2 weeks in advance of appointment times, with a calendar link for you to sign up for a session. Next month's Purple Connection lineup is this slide. Our topic of the day next month is elder care services. Our veteran entrepreneur will be Patrick Kershaw, who is an elder care consultant in Senior Care Authority here in Kansas City, Missouri. Our community organization representative would be Ted Morrissey. He's a membership growth consultant and will be representing the dedicated Senior Medical Center. Our military-friendly company representative is Eva Gavin, a senior care advisor, also representing Senior Care Authority as an entrepreneur. And then transition tips will be given by me. Contact me at my email for more information or anything in the program or future events. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And certainly if you are local, come to some of our events and meet some of those of us in the community. We all represent support and expertise in a certain sphere of influence. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a good evening. We'll see you next month, and I look forward to seeing you at a future event. Follow up with each other. Thank you so much.